Okay, welcome back for another video here. What we're doing today, is we're going to look at some new drum shots from the product DrumForge, and you may have heard of them. They've got a whole bunch of other ones on their website. So if you went to drumforge.com, you'll see products. Okay, you'll click on that. And you'll see a whole bunch of different names in here. Andrew Wade, Taylor Larson, Daniel Bergstrand, all of these producers and engineers, and then a few other products too, like some plugins, compressors, and saturators and things like that. What we're going to do today is Joey from DrumForge is giving us an advanced look at some new drum samples that they're going to have coming out from Dave Otero. And Dave Otero, you may have heard of him if you've listened to maybe metal music. His genre is metal, and he's worked with a lot of labels and some familiar bands, and you can look him up if you want. But essentially, he's got some kicks, some snare, and some tom samples that we're going to be able to try out. And the idea is that you can use these samples to kind of just boost the performance of the drummer who did the live drum recording. So, sorry, you're going to have to excuse me. My voice is a little hoarse. I'm actually dealing with a cold right now. That sucks. Back to the drums. So, Dave Otero, been in the industry about 20 years or so. He's got his own studio called Flatline Audio out of Westminster, Colorado. And so he's got some samples that were sent to me, and we're going to demo them out. So I found an old drum recording, and we're going to just throw on a few samples on top of the kick and on top of the snare and on top of the toms. And then we can judge for ourselves. Now he's got several different drums in there, and I'm going to show you those in a quick second here. Now there's a couple ways that you can do this, okay? So what you can do is you can actually put they're at WAV files, by the way. All the samples come in WAV files. So you can actually individually put those files into the track. If you wanted to do that, you could lay down a track here. What I did instead was I used Trigger. And some of you are probably familiar with Slate drums, and Trigger is one of the products. I've got Trigger 2. I did a couple of demos on fixing some other drum tracks with using the Trigger samples and samples from the SSD library. But what I was able to do is take the WAV files from Dave's samples and put them into the Trigger directory. And basically all I did is I opened up the SSD5 library folder, and then I opened up the one-shot samples data folder, and I copied the whole DrumShotz sample library in there. And what this did was it allowed me to reopen Trigger, and then Trigger found all of the samples because they're all WAV files. In the one-shot sample data folder, it looks for WAV file format. So this was a way that I could dump all of the samples into Trigger, and then without having to try and line everything up, get the WAV files in so that I could lay them right on top of the existing performance, and rather than trying to program a performance, because let's be honest, back in the day before tempo maps and things like that were done, and I mean we didn't have a tempo map when we recorded this. So when before tempo maps, and quantizing and all that stuff, guys would go in a room and record the drums maybe to a click track. And sometimes they wouldn't even do it to a click track, because if there were weird changes or tempo changes in the song, they wouldn't use a click track. They would just go by feel and just go play in the studio together and then just record the drums, say. And so you would have tempo fluctuations. And so when you're trying to quantize that in a DAW, it's extremely difficult to do that. So that's why I thought, why don't I just put everything in to Trigger, and then I'll use Trigger to use Dave Otero's samples over top of Cody's drumming. So this way it doesn't sound so mechanical and quantized like programming MIDI drums either. This way I'm able to enhance the sound of the performance, not change the performance, right? Not make the performance so mechanical that everything is just perfectly lined up, because you can hear that when a drummer is playing it live, you've got the live performance, you've got a little bit more of the emotion going into the drumming, and you're just enhancing the sound of the recorded tracks, not exactly their performance or changing the performance in any way. So that's thumbs up, right? Okay, so here's what I did. This is the kick drum. There's several different sounds. He's got sleigh, wolf, gut, snares. We've got doom, gut, sleigh, and wolf. Love the names. Toms, we've got a few different sizes of Yamaha birch and Yamaha oak toms. So we've got the like tom 1, tom 2, and floor tom 1, 2, floor tom, or you can use the 14 and 15 inch for floor tom 1, floor tom 2 if you wanted to do it that way, if that's what your kit required. Okay, so that's what I did here. So let's have a listen, and you can see what's happening when this is being played. See, so I lost the kick entirely, even though I've got my input fairly high. It just blended right into the mix, and that's no good. You want that kick to stand out a little bit. So if I go back here, you see what that did? It didn't necessarily increase the overall volume of the kick. It just made it cut through the mix better. Which is exactly what you want it to do. Now looking at the snare. Okay, so I put a couple of different ones in here. The wolf snare and the gut snare. So I've got the wolf snare muted right now. And so you're going to hear what the gut snare is doing to this snare drum. And I'm just going to solo that drum bus again here. Now I'll just mute all those, and then I'll turn the wolf snare on. And basically all I did was like to get these inside of Trigger. Okay, I just opened my folder where I had everything, right? And wolf snare, wolf mixed. Okay, all I did was you just click and drag it into that empty slot. Okay, to get rid of it, you right click and click yes to clear the slot. And that's how that's done. I like the gut myself, so I'll go back to that. There you go. Man, what a difference that makes. So here's what the snare sounds like without kind of ringing. Right? Okay, so let's check out the toms here. Okay, so here listening to the toms, I'll just turn the inserts off here. and you'll hear what the toms sound like. Okay, I'm going to turn these back on. So you can hear that extra low end, that thud, especially on the floor tom, that do 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 do, right? It sounds way better that way. It's not necessarily changing the overall sound. It's it's almost like adding EQ to it and just getting that recorded tom to just fill out way more in the mix. These are some great sounding samples. Now, full disclosure, I'm not in any way affiliated with Dave Otero or DrumForge. I'm not being paid to look at these samples or anything like that. I just wanted to do a video. I was approached by them to do a video and do a review on it. And I explained that I would review it and give my honest opinion on it. And I can tell you my honest opinion is that it does sound really good. And I really loved how the kick and the snare and the toms cut through the mix now. And the only inserts I've got on here is the trigger. There's no EQ, there's no compression, there's none of that yet. So what you're hearing and the way it's cutting through right now is just enhancing the recording enough to make it way easier for you to add compression and EQ later, because right now it's already cutting through the mix. And that's an awesome start for getting a good metal sound going. There you go. Okay, now something else I did, which I thought was kind of cool, was I put a little test drum instrument on here, and all that is I took a Presonus, this is Presonus Studio One 4, by the way, Pro, and what I did was I just opened up XT, so I've got an Atom, and I set up the Atom and Impact to use the samples from Dave's DrumShotz. And so basically all I'm going to do is I'm going to take the samples, on add sample, okay, and then this is where I could find the snares. You just navigate to that area and pick your sample. Okay, you can take the wave files, right? And this is pretty cool because now you can start quantizing it, you can adjust the pitch, you can do all kinds of stuff. The filter, you can drive the gain hard and get a crackly sound coming out of it, and you can do this all with just using the Presonus Atom or anything else. I've got an Akai Mini APK or MPK Mini as well. You could try using that, no big deal, and then have some fun with it. Okay, so this is what I loaded up. I just loaded a couple of kicks and a snare, and let's see what recording we get out of that. That's what I'll do. So now I'm just going to run Impact XT. Whoa! Let's see what this sounds like. Cool. As you can see, you can do lots of different things with Dave Otero's drum samples. You know what? That was just the dry samples themselves in Impact and whatever other MIDI controller you want to trigger those with. And I mean, it still sounds really good that way too. Again, no EQ, no compression, no nothing, just the straight sample. So that's an example of how you can load it up in a MIDI controller and just trigger those one shots and get yourself a drum loop going that way. What else you can do is what I did with an old drum live recording performance is just enhance it a little bit and make it great. So that's what we're all about, right? Trying to make things sound better. Thanks to DrumForge for letting me take a look at these samples ahead of time. Maybe by the time this video is up, those are already for sale. So if you want, you can go and check those out. And other than that, thanks for being here and keep making music. Kleenex. And let me tell you, man, the Kleenex, this is a side, the Kleenex that has the aloe in it, man, does that stuff ever save your nose. Whew.